we have our union president, Mr. Moosa Harraj, leading the charge for the proposition. Moosa is not only the president of this union, he's also a Pakistani by birth and a very, very dear friend of mine. In fact, as his chief of staff, I've spent months working with him, which makes tonight a tad bit awkward, because technically, I'm supposed to make him look good. But here I am, last night, writing his speech for him. A few weeks ago, he
Point of
smiled.
information.
Yes.
So you're admitting in a chamber that what I just said was written by an Indian you.
To respond, I shall gladly admit that sometimes it takes an Indian to clean up the incompetence of a Pakistani. Ten men held the city of 20 million hostage. Now look at the policy response. The proposition says that India is populist. What would a populist government do after 2611? The public rage was nuclear. I remember it. We wanted blood. We wanted the Air Force to flatten the training camps in Mudarke. A populist leader would have just launched the jets to win the next election. But the government of the day, the Congress party, chose strategic restraint. They chose diplomacy. They chose to send dossiers. They appealed to the international community. They appealed to you. Did it work? Did it buy us? Did the non-populist approach buy us peace? No. It bought us Pathankot. It bought us Uri. It bought us Pulwama. We learned a hard lesson, Mr. President. You cannot shame a state that has no shame.
Hello and welcome back. I cannot start this video without pointing out the sweet poetic irony of an Indian and a Pakistani student debating in the Oxford University, a British funded university, where it was the British that created this entire India-Pakistan debacle. Like they have a significant role in the Palestine-Israel issue. Given the circumstances in UK right now, we cannot go without mentioning that it is very weird or curious that in the highest or the most prestigious platform for debate and freedom of speech, that is the Oxford Union, we have a Pakistani president. There on the streets, the Pakistani Islamic groups, radical Islamic groups, are unleashing terror and crimes of great horror. And in places like the Oxford Union, where the narrative is set, there is also Pakistani leadership. So it is in this context that such a debate is happening. And he is using the same tactic that has been used for the past decade now, more than a decade now. That is the Narendra Modi government, or the fascist, populist, majoritarian government in India is creating a mass psychosis in a sort of a dystopian fascist regime, where they are instilling fear for the enemy or creating an other, that is Pakistan, so that they will never lose the votes or the mass consensus of Indians. Well, it is an argument that has been debunked a lot, so it's curious that they are still using it. What do you think?
Viraansh, is also an Indian. My first chief of staff was also an Indian. But my first chief of staff lasted only a little bit longer than the Rafale jets in airspace. You would have thought that I had learned my lesson from that. But no, I picked my second chief of staff to be an Indian as well. But after working with both of them, I can personally say I have lived through India's entire Pakistan policy. Because Viraansh is exactly like that. Loud, high in emotion, and when everything goes wrong, instead of introspecting and reflecting, that like the Indians, resorts to only one tactic: blame the Pakistani president. His girlfriend breaks up with him. What does Viraansh do? Blame the Pakistani president. He gets punched in the face by a mobster. What does Viraansh do? Blame the Pakistani president. And if he loses his election tomorrow, I'm telling you, trust me, he will blame the Pakistani president. But let me be clear in my speech. My target is not the Indian citizens, who themselves are a great victim to this lie. But my target is the architect of this lie. I stand here to expose the regime of Narendra Modi, a government that has turned the world's largest democracy into the world's largest stage for hate. Let us look at the facts. Not the propaganda, but the blood-stained facts. On the 7th of May, 2025, the Indian Air Force launched Operation Sindoor. They called it a surgical strike. Pakistani fathers were digging through concrete. That is the cost of security policy. And for what? When the tragedy, and it is a severe tragedy, what happened at Balagam. On the 23rd of April, after that tragedy, our Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif stood before the world and condemned what happened in Balagam. He did not ask for war, he asked for truth. He offered a joint independent international inquiry. He opened the door to investigators. And what did Mr. Modi do? Did he pick up the phone? Did he send a diplomat? Did he provide a single shred of credible evidence to the United Nations? No. He sent the Air Force.
The most important point that we shouldn't miss here is him describing the Pahalgam attack as a tragedy, a very unspeakable tragedy, but still a tragedy. What kind of tragedy was that? Was it an earthquake? Was it a country coming into war? No, it wasn't. It was a terrorist attack planned in Pakistan and executed by Pakistani terrorists. So India has been continuously calling out Pakistan for supporting terrorism and using it as a means to attack, or as a kind of a soft war tactic where they send in terrorists instead of going into real combat.
Mr. Speaker, I will set out the anatomy of their spectacle. Watch the choreography. What is the step one? A tragedy happens. Step two, before the bodies even get cold, the media frenzy begins. Not asking who did this, but screaming revenge. And step three, the missiles fly. They call this security, but let's just call it for what it is. It is populism in uniform. And it's worked, didn't it? Look at the headlines from this week. In November 2025, the BJP swept the elections in Bihar. The same commentators who said Modi was finished are now calling him the protector. He sold them fear, and that bought him a landslide.
Because yes, there has been one or the other election going on when these strikes are happening, but it is India. We have a lot of states and union territories, and there will be one or the other election happening all the time. So can we really make that argument? And yes, Indians are electing their leaders on the basis of unemployment, economical, financial growth, and also security. So it's not just one thing that we are electing them on, and security happens to be a very important issue. So what are you complaining about here?
It's not just about one election. It is about a soul. The soul of the current Indian regime is fascist. We must speak the truth that polite diplomacy tries to hide. Prime Minister Modi is not a lone actor. He's the obedient soldier of RSS. You cannot understand Modi without understanding the RSS. From the ashes of the Gujarat riots in 2002, where Mr. Modi presided over the slaughter of 1,000 Muslims, to the destruction of the Babri Masjid, their playbook has remained consistent. Power is consolidated by manufacturing a permanent enemy. Their version of a Hindu Rashtra, a pure ethno-religious state, cannot exist without an other. They need Pakistan. What? You have to stand up if you want to point information. Denied, so sit down. They need Pakistan. If Pakistan disappeared tomorrow, the BJP would have to invent us. Because without the monster next door, they would have to answer to their own people for the hunger, the poverty, and the economic turbulence. So let me tell you again. They do not fight because we are a threat to their borders. They fight us because we are necessary for their ballots.
We actually don't have to go so far to find the right rebuttal for his argument. Just look at the comment section. Pakistan speaking about democracy is the biggest comedy. A Pakistani talking about India, poverty, unemployment. Irony. The question also is, if Pakistan is so adamant or so particular that Modi government doesn't come back into regime because it's a fascist dystopian government, then why are they attacking, or why are they not stopping their internal terrorist activities aimed at India and giving them chances, or giving chances to the Modi government to win elections? Just stop with the terror attacks now. That way, they will not have to create an enemy out of thin air. They will have to focus on the internal issues. So, if that is an important concern for Pakistanis, the best thing they can do is stop terror attacks anytime.
Speaker, I'm talking about the Indus Waters Treaty. On April the 23rd, 2025, India announced the suspension of this treaty, a pact that had survived 3 wars. But they did not stop at announcements. Using water is a basic human right as a weapon of war is not just despicable, it's an act of hydroterrorism. They are threatening to parch the throats of our children. They are threatening to turn the breadbasket of Punjab into a dust bowl. Since when? Since when did a security policy involve starving a neighbor? Since when did the right to thirst become a tool of diplomatic leverage? By holding a vital resource, a vital shared resource hostage, Delhi has signaled to the world that it is willing to weaponize nature itself. This is not the behavior of a regional superpower. It is the behavior of a neighborhood bully who thinks respect can be demanded at the tap of a dam.
He definitely uses a lot of very strong words: war on water, starving people, creating a thirst crisis. I have actually made a video on Indus Water Treaty if you want to know more details about it. Basically, India has been losing out on the Indus River Basin water, even though most of the river basin is in India. We had been cutting off our access to the Indus River Basin so that Pakistan would get water. That was the treaty sign. It was a diplomatic disaster for Pakistan, that's very true, because they really relied on the water that India was giving them, actually starving Punjab, Haryana, and parts of Rajasthan for Pakistan to get their water. So, yes, it was a diplomatic disaster, but something India has all the right to do, given that those rivers are in our land. And once again, if that was so much of a concern for Pakistanis, the very decent thing that they could do was comply with the Indus Water Treaty Agreement and also the Shimla Agreement, and not escalate or not target Indian cities and Indian states. That's it for this video. I hope you liked this one. If you did, please do comment your valuable thoughts and opinions on this. And until we meet next time, bye bye, have an awesome time, and don't forget to subscribe.